Anna, welcome. Let's talk housing. What does the planning board actually do? Because I have a feeling a lot of people that you hear planning board, you hear this board, that board, but you don't really know what goes on.
Sure. Well, there are four sort of very distinct things that the planning board does, and this slide, for example, talks about those things that we are responsible for, which include developing and reviewing the zoning proposals, as well as the master plan, which was created back in 2017. We also review applications, so whether for a residential community or for a commercial development, as well as for land development and redevelopment of existing properties. So that's the second thing. Then the third one is we hold public hearings, and so those are wonderful opportunities for residents to be able to engage by watching or attending those public hearings, because we are very diligent about going through and making sure that folks are informed about what's going on in town, but that's how we do it. And then finally, if there's some kind of a zoning change that needs to happen, we make recommendations for town meeting, and that's what folks get to work on or get to vote on during the town meeting.
So see, your board is actually doing a lot for the town.
We do a lot as it relates to residential and commercial, and any type of application we review. If it is something that's related to the town, so for example, the new town library, that really falls more on the select board because it's a public building.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we do approve the final application for the building itself, but when folks talk about all the different things that a town might have, whether it's fire department, police department, the library, those really start with the select board and are within their jurisdiction.
Well, what about a senior center? Where does that go?
So a senior center, because it's a public building, really resides with the select board. And then if a building application were to be put forward, the planning board would then review it to make sure that it meets all of the bylaws.
Oh, okay. Because I kind of wondered about that, because there's going to be a big push for our senior center, you know.
Yes.
And they'll be looking for funds and whatever. So
well,
I think it's important to so many people, especially our seniors.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
So both boards are heavily involved. Yes.
Oh, good. I want to make sure. But anyway, what about housing and seniors? So many seniors really don't know. Like, I live in town. I want to, be involved in housing, and what do I do? And because actually, I don't think that just because you're in town, you can actually get one of these houses, because finances, right? And whatever else, so explain.
Sure. So I would say that the town actually has a good past meeting to be able to reference. And so I have a slide that shows the senior eligibility for subsidized housing. And the slide starts out by talking about the topic that has been discussed before in April of 2019, and there's a link there for folks to be able to actually go to view that again, because we had some experts come into Littleton to describe what seniors would need to be able to do to qualify. So, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a bit, but in general, for home ownership, there are going to be certain criteria that need to be met in terms of both income at less than income, as well as age restriction, and a asset level of $275,000 or less. For renting, there are many resources, and this particular slide will actually identify those resources of different organizations around the state that someone could inquire with as to what their eligibility is, as well as what is even available.
Oh, good, because there's a lot that question.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And ultimately, I believe that one of the things that we can also do is inform our seniors. And so if there is an opportunity that we can do that at another time, we should try to do that.
I like that, because you were saying, they could actually, if they have a computer, can go online and find out these things. But we know a lot that even though the computer's been around a lot, they maybe don't own one, don't know how to use it. Where can they get the information? That's important.
Exactly. And there are handouts that were provided back in 2019 that perhaps we should go ahead and make sure that the COA has those available for any seniors who would be interested.
Oh, I think that's a very good idea.
Okay.
Very good.
And also, as an example, Jones Meadow currently went through the lottery process for a couple of units, and in that link, again, access to the internet, but they could be printed out. All of the application criteria is on there. It's a 16-page application with lots of information and a flyer as well. But folks shouldn't be deterred from taking a look at something like that, just so they can get familiar with the kinds of questions that are asked.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel, let's take care of them.
Absolutely.
And especially, they're just going to ask maybe even the wrong people what I do. So if they can get the information, hard copy or the computer,
yes,
then that's good.
We would like to make sure that folks have the right information so they can make the decisions that are best for them.
Good. You have a few slides for us today.
I do, thank you. So I would like to talk a little bit about housing in Littleton, and I will also talk a little bit about seniors in this presentation. And I decided to go ahead and do this really as a volunteer, because I felt that there were so many questions about what affordable housing means. So it starts really by talking about the definition of affordable. And I actually consider this after talking with an organization called CHAPA. It's the Citizens Housing and Planning Association. And so they're very helpful in the housing realm in the state of Massachusetts. And so affordability is really when your rent or your mortgage is less than 30% of your household income. That's it. It's pretty much that simple. From the standpoint of whether somebody has a higher income, a lower income, one just needs to have no more than 30% paying out to their mortgage or rent. So that's one key definition. So another important concept to be able to convey information about is called area median income. It's a very useful tool because it allows one to understand what can actually be purchased or rented. So AMI essentially just means that half of the households are below 100% AMI and the other half are above 100% AMI. So here in Littleton in 2021, our AMI is $84,600 for an individual, and the AMI for a family of four is $120,800. So again, half the families would have income less than that, and half would have more than that. So the AMI is essentially broken out typically into three categories. Less than 80% AMI is considered lower income households, 80 to 120% is considered middle income households, and greater than 120% is considered higher income households. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit more about the specifics around each of the categories. So for 80% AMI, typically speaking, households that earn in this income category can have a maximum income of $67,700. So let's talk a little bit about the types of folks who earn this. It could be folks we interact with every day, folks that we know, such as our restaurant service workers, our childcare workers, young adults who have recently graduated from college, as well as a senior who is receiving a Social Security income. The amount of home that somebody in this category can actually purchase, given their income, would be a maximum of $202,000 for a 1 or 2 bedroom home. And the maximum apartment that could be rented would be $1,622 a month. So I took a look at what we actually have here in Littleton as to what someone in this particular income range could afford. There were no market rate homes in the last quarter that someone in this category could afford. The lowest amount was $307,000 price tag. And then in terms of rental units, the lowest amount of rent was $1,735, and that had a 2.5-month wait list at the time. So then moving on to the next income category of 80 to 120% AMI, the income range here for households is between 67 and 101,000. The folks that we know who might be in this income range would be, as an example, HVAC mechanics, restaurant managers, engineers, financial advisors, and many of our town employees, including our school teachers, police officers, firefighters. And I would like to say that everywhere in my presentation where there's a little superseded number, that's an end note. So everything that I have is documented as to where I got the data.
Okay.
So folks in this particular income category would be able to afford a home between $202,000 and $330,000 for a 1 to 2 bedroom home. They could afford an apartment ranging between $1,622 and $2,467 a month. Now, again, going back to the data for the last quarter, only 2 of the 44 homes that were sold at market rate were less than that fit within that category of price range at less than $330,000. So only 2, only 5% of all the homes sold. In terms of apartments, it went from 1 apartment to 2 apartments that would be available for somebody in this particular income category. Then moving on to the final income category of greater than 120%. So this is folks earning more than $101,500, and only a handful of Littleton town personnel earn more than this. It would include folks who are attorneys, doctors, folks in the tech industry, computer industry. Again, they would have no problem affording any of the homes that were on the market as long as it wasn't exceeding 30% of their household income. So then in summary of the 3 different categories, the next slide shows all 3 of the different categories, and you can see there what the household income maximum is, as well as the amount of what they could purchase and also what they could rent for. The very bottom line on that particular chart, Barbara, shows the gap. And so in the less than 80% AMI, we know from some work that was done for the Littleton Housing Trust that there is a wait list of at least 44 individuals or households that are in need of housing that's at less than 80% AMI. We know that right now. There are probably even more, but that's what has been currently identified. In terms of that middle income, there are potentially hundreds, and I'll explain that in a couple of slides. So in moving on, there are various reasons why it's important for all of Littleton residents to understand that housing that is affordable and moderately priced in Littleton is very much needed. The first reason is because of our seniors. And we've talked about this before, how important it is. And in fact, we did create, with your assistance, a wonderful video describing what it is that Littleton seniors want and need. And so I put the link to that particular video so that everyone can watch it again. But in Littleton, we have our seniors who have these beautiful homes where they raise their families, and now they would like something smaller.
Yeah.
And the issue is that there really aren't homes or even rental units that they can move to because Littleton doesn't have them. They just plainly do not exist. Right. And so that senior sell down that typically can happen isn't possible based off the data that I presented earlier. So the second reason is that our workforce needs to be able to live and work here if they choose to. There was a recent study done that over 7,000 employees come into Littleton to work, but most of them don't live here. Very few people live and work in Littleton. And so, as I understand it from the many folks that I've talked with, there are so many stories about how town personnel used to be able to live here, and slowly they've been unable to continue to do so because of the pricing in the marketplace. The third reason that I would say that's very important is that currently our housing stock is geared toward higher incomes. And recent census information shows that 28% of Littleton residents earn less than the 80% AMI, and that's actually down 2 percentage points from the previous 2 years. I'm going to skip to the third bullet on this particular slide because it then shows the higher income category of folks earning more than $100,000 a year is at 60.3% of all Littleton households, and that's up 2 percentage points. So essentially, I think those households switched from being in the, used to have residents who were in the lower income households. Now we have more folks in the higher income households. So I want to talk for a minute about this middle income one because it's the key point around middle income housing. Currently, only 11.4% of Littleton households are in this category, earning between $67,000 and $100,000 a year. So it's that middle group that's really getting squeezed. And what I have found through a different study about what makes a healthy community is if we want to have a community where 20 to 50% of households are in each of those different categories, right now we're over in the higher income categories and we're lower in that middle income category. So we have only 11% of households in that middle income category. And if we were to increase that to 20%, let's say we were to create more housing that was in that 20%, that was in that middle income category, that would equate to about 329 housing units, just to get us up so that that percentage is a little bit more in line with what creates a good, healthy community.
Yeah, I do want to mention the fact that I can remember years back when we were perfect as far as the percentage. Mm-hmm. And of course now the town is being built, and so we've gone up so that we need more.
Yes.
Yeah, so it does, I'm sure years from now, we'll, not you and I, but someone will be talking about it again, saying our percentage is too low. Well, depending how much land we have left, I think. But I was just imagining how I had heard, oh, we're right there, we're perfect.
Yeah.
And then now we're not.
Correct.
Yeah, it just grows.
Correct. And so as a town, the final reason, if you will, on the next slide shows that we have, as a town, grown every decade since 1980 about 1,000 residents every 10 years. You can just kind of count on it. So between 2017, when we finished up the master plan, in 2030, we expect to get another 1,000 residents. So where should they go? And that's one of the reasons why I think my having been on the master plan committee and now on the planning board, I can see those connections and I can say, well, we have in the master plan identified where we want future development to go. We want it to go at the point, within the common area, by the train station, in old commercial areas. So we have defined it. And I know that in town we love our green space. I love all of our green space that we have. And in order to maintain that, we need to be diligent about making sure that development is put where we said we want it. Littleton residents have already spoken through the master plan.
Counting on you?
Yes. We know where we want it, and that's where where it should be. Yes. This is an example of where the senior residential development bylaw was put into place so that it could work for us, for our seniors. This is a development that's going to be going in across from the Littleton Cafe. It will have 24 units.
Oh, yeah.
And in this particular development, because it came in after the Second Amendment to the senior residential bylaw, we were requiring of the developer between 25 and 50% of affordable units. We came in at 40% after negotiation, and what we're getting out of that is that we are getting 2 units less than 80% AMI. Those are 1-bedroom units. And between 80 and 120% AMI, we are getting 6 units. 3 of those are 1-bedroom, and 3 of those are 2-bedroom units.
Oh.
And then for greater than 120% AMI, there are 2 units as well. So we get 10 out of the 24 units that will be affordable. So that's how we made that senior residential development bylaw work for us.
But I'm sure there's people interested and not knowing all the ins and outs. So
Yes.
I felt it was important for anyone who questions what's happening.
Yes.
They should know. They actually should know
Yes.
what's going on.
Absolutely.
So that helps a lot.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And I think for today, if I have anything to say about, in summary, is really that folks need to be able to take a look at what it is that Littleton residents really want and need, and understand what affordability means, and then also to stay apprised of the information. I know we're all so busy with our lives, with children, with activities, with work, and other volunteer activities, but we have lots of options for folks to be able to stay apprised, whether it's going to the website and looking for the information on the planning board site, or watching LCTV live, or watching LCTV in recorded format, even if it's at 11 p.m. at night because you can't sleep. You know,
Right.
there's always something available to be able
Right.
to be watched.
Right.
And then finally, to engage. I recall when I ran for the planning board, I said, I really want to hear from residents. I want to be able to get input in terms of what you like, what you don't like, what's important to you.
It's hard because they'll tell their friends and they'll tell strangers, but to get a hold of someone who knows, it just seems hard to people.
I can understand that. I can. And being able to send an email to us and the planning board, we see those emails, and we're also residents, so we're out and about, and anybody who would like to contact me, I'm more than happy to talk with them.
Good. We'll let them know where to contact you. You're part of it now. That was really interesting. I
Thank
actually
you.
paid attention. But I'll probably want to watch it again.
Okay,
From beginning to end.
absolutely, and I'm more than happy to chat if there are any groups that want me to come out and do
Good.
a smaller group setting meeting to talk through it. I'm more than happy to do that as well.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Barbara.
being here and giving us all this information. I hope that everyone out there uses it, listened, and contacts the planning board so that you can get it from the right people. How's that?
That's right. Appreciate it. Thank you
Good.
so much.
We'll be seeing you soon.
Okay.